Welcome, mortals. She floats, she frightens, and she appears in every corner of the globe. This week, we're putting on our ghost hunting goggles for the famous White Lady of Balete Drive. But why is it always a lady in white? We'll unravel the cultural significance of these spectral figures, then crank the weirdness up to 11 as we explore whether quantum theories might just be the scientific explanation for why the dead still walk. Prepare to have your perceptions of reality and ghosts shifted on the Parallax Podcast.
Hi, Willow.
Hello, Karisa. It's been 500,000 gazillion years since we've recorded.
Been busy. I mean, technically, it's either you've been in the Philippines or sick, or I have had like a boatload of stuff because of Jamie.
It's all Jamie's fault.
Yes.
Call him out.
Plus work. You know, we both also work too. So
yes,
we've been very busy. So we have been a little lax on being able to find time to be prepared for episodes. And I don't want to come to an episode halfway prepared.
Yeah.
So even if I have the general idea of what I'm going to talk about on my end, even if Willow's completely prepared, I like to feel prepared. So, yeah.
Like we want to make sure that we've done our due diligence to look at all the stories and all the facts and everything that we can to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So tonight, since speaking of the Philippines, while Willow was there, she brought back a story with her. So tonight's theme is the lady in white, or I should say all the ladies
in white.
Yes.
Literally. So funny story about how this happened. How we learned about what did I literally just say? The White Lady? The Lady in White? Yeah, the White Lady of Balete Drive. The reason I heard about this, okay, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I am myself a Caucasian lady. And it has been wintertime. So I have gotten no sun, which means I am particularly fair-skinned right now. And I was in the Philippines with my husband, with his family, and we were walking along this, it's kind of like a small touristy garden, just smack dab on the side of a mountain. And we were walking along, and the fog had kind of started to roll in over the top of the mountain. And it was kind of starting to get to twilight. It wasn't quite twilight, but it was getting there. And when you are a fair-skinned lady such as myself, and you have not gotten sun in months and months and months, then when the light gets a certain way close to dusk or twilight, your skin almost glows because you are that
pale.
Yes.
Pale.
I'm that pale. And so my dear husband, who is quite the joker, was, of course, poking fun of the fact that it looked like my skin was glowing. And that's when his brother brought up that I must be the White Lady of Balete Drive. And I said, okay, well, I actually have to know what that is so that I can bring back a good story to talk about on the Parallax Podcast.
Yes. And I'm excited for this one because we have talked about doing the Lady in White type episodes. The fact that you were able to bring something back from your trip and from your husband's culture is exciting. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say and excited to share with you some of the theories of like the quantum physics theories that can do with the spiritual realm.
Yeah, and I'm telling you guys right now, I was not ready for that side of it, by the by. Like, I knew that I was going to talk about what the White Lady of Balete Drive was and, like, the story of her. And then I was like, all right, Karisa, you do you. I pretty much said, this is what I'm going to do. We agree on this, and then you bring whatever you're going to bring to the table. I don't know what this quantum theory is. I was not ready for that. I heard about it whenever I read what I was going to be saying for our intro today. So I was today years old when I learned that this was a theory. So the road, now known as Balete Drive, runs through New Manila, a district in, excuse my pronunciation, Quezon City in Metro Manila, Philippines. I'm going to try the best I can to pronounce some of these words. My Tagalog is not it at all in any way, shape, or form. But I'm very sorry to the Filipinos out there. Anywho, today, it is a relatively ordinary urban road lined with residential properties, trees, and commercial buildings. But for decades, Balete Drive has been associated with one of the most widely reported paranormal legends in the Philippines, the White Lady of Balete Drive. Unlike many folklore stories that develop centuries after the events they describe, the Balete Drive legend appears to have taken shape during the mid-20th, at a time when New Manila was still developing and the area was far quieter than it is today. To understand the reports surrounding the White Lady, it is necessary to begin with the environment where the sighting supposedly occurred. During the 90s through the 1960s, Belete Drive was not the busy thoroughfare that it is today. It was a relatively dark road bordered by large houses and mature belete trees, a species of fig tree known in Filipino folklore for its twisting aerial roots and dense canopy. These trees are often associated with supernatural stories in Philippine culture. And I actually can't remember what these are called. They have a different name here in in America. And I can't think of what they are called, but they're literally the way that the belete trees grow is they take over an already existing alive tree, and once their roots have grown down far enough that they can reach the ground, they start to just absorb the tree, and the tree that they have grown on just dies and leaves the inside of the belete tree hollow.
Well, I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember what my mom used to call that.
Because they have a different name here. I cannot for the life of me remember what it is right now.
Will you keep describing the story? I'm going to try and find it on Google.
Cool. We'll be Googling. Anywho, back to Belete Drive. At night, the road was dimly lit and sparsely traveled. Taxi drivers, delivery drivers, and residents moving through the area late at night would often pass along stretches of shadow beneath the trees. And quick aside here, when it says taxi drivers and delivery drivers, these are people on motorcycles and tricycles and something called a jeepney, which would be ish around this time, probably closer to the 60s and 70s if I had to guess. But a jeepney is a rebuilt World War II Jeep that has been made into the bright graffitied version of a bus. Wow. So that's what was driving along the street. Yeah. I will definitely send you a picture of it. They're interesting is what they are. They're very interesting. And people crowd onto these jeepneys as tight as they possibly can to get from place to place. But that's what's moving down this road. It's not like a taxi car like what we're thinking of. It's more commonly going to be the motorcycles, and maybe every once in a while there'll be a car like what we think of. But it's in this particular setting that the earliest stories of the White Lady began to circulate. The most common version of the legend describes a woman dressed in white who appears along Belete Drive late at night. Drivers claim to see her standing near the roadside, walking along a sidewalk, or occasionally appearing suddenly in a vehicle's rearview mirror after a driver passes a particular stretch of road. The figure is usually described as having long dark hair, wearing a white dress, and appearing pale or expressionless. Some accounts claim the woman's face is obscured by her hair. Others say she appears clearly for a moment, then disappears. The legend became so widely known that by the 1950s and 1960s, taxi drivers in Manila were already discussing the road as a place where strange sightings occurred. But unlike purely mythical stories, the White Lady legend was sometimes told alongside claims of real events. Several versions of the story suggest the woman was a victim of a violent crime. These explanations vary, but they usually center around the idea that the woman had been abducted, assaulted, or murdered somewhere along Belete Drive or in the surrounding area. The challenge for investigators, such as myself, and historians, is that there is no single confirmed crime that matches the legend exactly. And this kind of goes back to what is that? Oh my gosh, I just forgot the name. The name of the Goatman's Bridge. That episode that we did. Yes, where you and I were talking about how there's no confirmed crime, but that doesn't mean that there was no crime at all.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about here real quick is the claims of potential crimes that could have matched this or could have started this legend. And also just what was happening at that time to make people give this backstory to this apparition that they're seeing. So instead, the stories appear to be a blend of folklore, rumor, and possible references to real crimes. Like I just said, that was my talking point. One of the earliest widely repeated accounts claims the woman was a young student who disappeared while walking home along Belete Drive sometime during the 1940s or early 1950s. According to this version, she was later found dead in the area. possibly after being attacked by a driver or a group of men. However, when researchers and journalists have searched police records from that period, they have not found a single case that definitively matches the story. But, like I just said, that does not mean that the violent crimes did not occur. Something to understand, which I'm going to kind of go into here in just a moment. In the Philippines, even now, the written record or written account is not always accurate. Things that happen aren't always written down anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying this, and for legal reasons, I will say allegedly, the police force of the Philippines and the government is extremely corrupt. There's my cat. There have been some proven moments of corruption in the past, and it allegedly remains corrupt even now. But that could, of course, be a reason why we don't have a written account of whatever crime it was that happened. The other thing to keep in mind is that during the years following World War II, especially when the White Lady of Leyte Drive seemed to appear, Manila experienced significant instability. The city had been devastated during the war, and rebuilding took significant time. Law enforcement resources were stretched thin, and many crimes during that era were poorly documented. New Manila itself was being developed during this time. As a result, large areas remained quiet and poorly lit, which of course is a perfect opportunity for people who want to commit horrible crimes to commit their horrible crimes. Plus, the other thing too, when we have that claim of there being potentially a young student who was abducted, and that, could be where this apparition came from. Why am I forgetting words? Why can't I talk tonight? The Japanese occupation of the Philippines was very, very violent. They were, shall we say, treated quite horribly by the Japanese. So it would not surprise me at all if there was something very violent that happened that had to do perhaps with Japanese soldiers during that time. Again, because we don't have anything that's proven. But
and what year did you say this was?
She began to be seen around 1950s, 1960s. That's the earliest account of potentially seeing somebody who had that white lady look. But it was definitely more so late 20th century that it became more popularized, shall we say. The legend did. I'm getting my hand groomed by my kitten right now because my hand apparently is very gross. It's very dirty. Anywho, the legend gained major public attention during the 1960s when a story circulated among taxi drivers about a passenger who vanished from a moving car. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't know why, but for some reason the stories I was reading about taxi drivers who would say they picked up a lady dressed in white, get her in the car, she would give them an address or directions to where she wanted to be dropped off, and then she would just disappear, just be gone from the backseat of the car. I don't know why that freaked me out so much, but those specific stories, when I was reading them, I was like, "Ooh, I don't like that. I do not like that at all." But that's exactly what they started talking about in the 1960s. It would pick up a young woman along Balete Drive. She would sit in the back seat, give them directions to a destination, and at some point during the drive, the taxi driver would glance into his rearview mirror and she'd be sitting quietly, and then when he looked again, she'd be gone. Terrifying. But soon, because of all of these stories going around, Balete Drive became known throughout Manila as a haunted road. The radio programs, newspaper features, and later television shows began discussing the legend. Over time, the story developed additional variations. In one version, the woman's face is horribly injured when the drivers see her. In another version, she asks for a ride and then disappears when the car approaches a particular house. And yet another version, she appears suddenly in the back seat of vehicles without ever being seen entering the car, which is also terrifying. To just look up in your rearview mirror and all of a sudden there's just a person in your backseat. But despite these different variations, certain
No, thank you. By the way, I meant to say that.
No,
I'm shaking my head. I'm thinking people can't see me shake my head. I'm literally shaking
they
my head.
can't see
nope.
your reaction. They have no idea.
My reaction was a nope.
Absolutely not. But despite these different variations of the story, certain elements remain consistent, such as the fact that she's always dressed in white, that sightings always occur late at night, and it's always along Balete Drive. Plus, she always disappears quite suddenly. From a historical standpoint, it is important to examine whether any documented crimes in the area might have contributed to this legend. Newspapers from the mid 20th century in Manila occasionally reported crimes involving abductions or assaults, particularly during the late 1940s and 90s. Which again is not surprising given what was going on at the time. Scroll down here real fast. One type of case that appeared in reports during that period involved attacks on women traveling late alone at night, which again, there wasn't really a large police presence during that time. So it's unfortunately not surprising that these types of crimes were more prevalent at this time. Although no single case specifically names Balete Drive as the exact location of a murder matching the White Lady's story, researchers have pointed out that unresolved crimes against women in Metro Manila during that era could easily have become associated with particular places over time, especially in oral storytelling traditions. In urban settings, these stories often merge with geography. A crime reported in one neighborhood may eventually become linked with another nearby location if that location fits the atmosphere of the story. And Balete Drive, with its dark tree canopy and quiet streets, provided a perfect setting for that type of association. Another possibility sometimes discussed by historians involves, like I was talking about before, the Japanese occupation of the Philippines during World War II. Between 1942 and 1945, Manila was under Japanese control, and numerous violent incidents occurred throughout the city. After the war, many stories circulated about people who had disappeared or been killed during that period. So, some researchers have suggested that the White Lady legend could reflect cultural memory of wartime violence rather than a specific individual crime. And I actually learned a little bit more about the wartime violence, which is kind of why I could speak on it when my husband and I actually visited the National Art Museum in the Philippines. They had a section that was dedicated to art that had been made during or about the Japanese occupation. And I definitely did not realize how violent and how awful it was until I was there seeing the art and like reading about the history behind it. They had their own essentially Trail of Tears that I believe was called the Death March, where they had marched a large group of Filipino men and women across a large plot of land. And if they couldn't keep up, they would just unalive them on the side of the road. So I definitely did not realize how bad it was. But after seeing that, seeing some of the artwork that was on display and then reading up on this, to me, it absolutely makes sense that this legend of the White Lady could either have something to do with some kind of violent crime that happened during that time, or that it could be, like it said, this like manifestation of the memories of what was occurring at that time to different people. Balete Drive had become widely known as one of the most haunted locations in the Philippines. Taxi drivers sometimes avoided driving through the area late at night unless they had passengers, and media coverage played a role in reinforcing the story. Television programs discussing supernatural phenomena occasionally featured Balete Drive, interviewing drivers who claimed to have seen the figure. In many cases, the witnesses described the experience as brief and unexpected. Let me scroll down again. And this actually brings up something I wanted to kind of talk to you about because I thought it'd be a really interesting conversation for us to have before we move into the more spiritual side of things. But I kind of found it interesting to research how the media, especially at this time, because in most places, media in general, whether it's news media, radio, or later on social media, really was booming at this like 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. It was really like taking hold, so to speak. And so I think it was interesting to research this particular legend, given that it's one that began relatively recently and that I feel as if it really took hold and became popular whenever the media caught on. And so I thought this would be kind of an interesting conversation to have with you about how the media changed not only the story itself, but how people were able to discuss it, how they're able to say, hey, this happened. Hey, this is a story. This is a legend. This must be a super haunted place. I thought that was really interesting to see. And I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
So are you asking me, I'm trying to figure out the question here. You're you're making statements, but what was the actual question about the media and social like
So it's really just I'm really just opening up a conversation to see, do you do you agree that there is a definite effect of the media, not only on
everybody
this.
wants their headline to be clicked on clickbait, whether it's in the 1950s or if it's in, almost I mean, it's not technically this isn't that recent. I mean, this is almost 100 years ago. Like,
Mhm.
and this is 70 years ago. So,
I say relatively in the sense of there's, like, ancient
right. So for
legends.
me, I guess the social media really didn't kick off until the 1990s, I would say.
Mhm.
Prior to the 1990s, maybe a little bit in the 80s.
Sorry, I was born after the internet.
Anyways, prior to everybody having access to social media, worldwide spreading has only literally been in the past 30 years, essentially.
Mhm.
Being able to access the media, people going on Facebook is newer than going on MySpace, where not everybody could see everything. Like, it has evolved
Mhm.
to where everybody has access to stuff now, so it's just clickbait. But prior to that, I feel like it wasn't as prevalent to have so many news stories in your feed. Like,
Mhm.
now it's like there's so much news. Which one do you click on?
Which one? Yeah.
So, 1950s, there wasn't as probably as much news spreading around in 1950s in the Philippines that was not taking over the headlines of a white lady in white.
That's true, and the other thing too, kinda going along with what you said about how, hopping onto Facebook and seeing this and that and the other is incredibly recent. Excuse me. The white lady herself and her legend really became part of pop culture in the Philippines by the early 2000s. There were television dramas and films and horror programs, and there's tourists that go to Manila and will ask taxi drivers to take them along Balete Drive specifically to see if they can see the white lady. And so I almost feel like social media now, like the media of modern times, has almost made it so that these legends and these myths, which used to hold so much fear, is now fascinating in the sense of, well, I want to see if I can see it. I want to see if I can get a picture so I can post it and I can be like, look what I saw. And it kind of takes down like the eerie feeling or like how serious people are taking these myths and these stories.
Well, the part of that could be social media and the fact that people across the pond were able to hear the ghost stories. Like spiritualism, like as far as ghost hunting, being pop culture, didn't really boom until, like, the late '90s and the early 2000s. There's notably, like, I mean, ghost hunters. I mean,
Mhm.
that those were our number 1 taps, the Transatlantic Paranormal Society ghost hunters. We like, our girls, when they were little, we got to meet them. That became a popular thing for these pop-up ghost hunting societies all over. The best thing they could do is start looking for other haunted places other than their backyard. Ones across the pond, going to Ireland or going to Scotland or the Philippines. Those things became kind of a mainstream, like, gadget-based thing that everybody felt like they could hold the gadgets and go find a ghost. Everybody wanna go probably
Mhm.
find the white ladies. It probably became really popular alongside of that, I would say.
Mhm. Mhm. That
Along
does
with
make
the social media, I guess.
that does make a lot of sense. I was gonna say, this was all before me.
Whatever.
Love you. But yeah, so that is the White Lady of Balete Drive. She is, and I was reading it was more of a blog post. So I was kind of reading it just to kind of get an idea of like, okay, how is this character seen more or less? What are the stories associated with her? To segue into what you're about to talk to me about, I was going to see if this was something that you had noticed, which I imagine it probably was in your research. When I was reading this blog post about the White Lady of Balete Drive, they were like, "Yeah, it's the typical white lady of the Asian ghost stories. Think the lady in white with the long hair from The Ring." And I was like, "Is that actually a thing? Is there a lot of
Well,
legends?"
so but the ring wasn't I mean, it was technically in America. The
This was
Grudge
just how she
the
was like
Grudge was
describing
Japanese.
it. Yeah, it was
Right.
just how she used it to describe it because it was an English speaker writing the blog. But I was like, "Is that an actual thing?"
So the Ring is a little different than The Grudge. Like, The Grudge was Japanese, but there was the kind of a lady in white with a grandmother that would died in the place, but there was also the creepy kid that make the weird sound. In the Ring, it's a little different because the child was thrown down and she was in white essentially with her long hair, but I don't think it's the same. It's a completely different I feel like the lady in white's a completely different feel. The most generally, the lady in whites are kind of ethereal looking with their flowing dresses and stuff like that. But, I don't it's a typical lady in white story, correct, because there are a lot, but I don't think it's a typical Asian one because it is not just Asian. So the
Mhm.
fact that whoever said that made it seem like it was just an Asian thing, that's where they're a little bit off because it is something that is throughout cultures. There are stories of like ghost stories per se, but like there's so many cultures outside of Asia that have ladies in white.
Well, introduce me to these ladies in
Shall
white
All right.
and your quantum theories.
Okay, so let me take a little dive. What I felt would be kind of cool to accompany Willow's story from the Philippines would be something about the global phenomenon of women in white, these spirits. And when I say global, like I said, when we are just talking, it's not just Asian, it is literally showing up in every corner of the world and places it should be impossible. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
So let's paint a picture here. I mean, you've got the 1500s, you've got the Spanish documented place in Mexico where they were seeing the lady in white weeping by the water. Germany, I'm sure when you studied German, there might have been some stories that you might have heard about the lady in white there, which has been appearing since the 1400s in a castle.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
and it's she always tends to appear before death. It's kind of like, okay, like saw the lady in white. Who's dying today?
Who's gonna die?
Who's drawing the short straw? I
Start
mean,
planning your funeral right now. Make
right.
sure everything's ready.
Right? And just like the Philippines, Japan has their own version as well that dates back thousands of years. We've got Ireland, we've got Scotland, we've got Native American tribes even. They all have some kind of white lady spirit, like this apparition. But here's the kicker. This is the cool thing, and this is where I like to use some of my skill sets of religious studies and
Mhm.
anthropology. Many of these cultures have zero contact with each other when these legends developed. Okay. Which is kind of my 3rd book when I wrote that one. It did a lot of the overlap of things that didn't have a connection route, but somehow they kinda showed up on the anthropological, like, radar in the same time frame. Like, with archaeology and anthropology studies, you see these same things happening in cultures, and I find that very interesting.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's almost I know you can look this up later, we could talk about it down the road, but it's called the 100 monkey theory. It's could be something like that happens in humans as well.
Okay,
Tag
just
that
skip
one.
over it, that's fine.
We're gonna skip over the 100 monkey theory.
Okay, so it's another episode, by the way.
Yes, yeah. I find the 100 monkey theory pretty fascinating, but I don't wanna take up so much time to describe that, so y'all can look it up until we talk about it later. Alright, but we're talking about, like, isolated nations on islands, we're talking about mountain communities that, like, are so far away from other places and different continents entirely, but somehow, independently, they decide that they have these most terrifying women in white who are wearing or these spirits who are wearing white, so, it's not an isolated situation where it's like, "Oh, yeah, well, they're doing it, so we're gonna go find our own." No, it's not like that.
We are very terrifying when we put on our white dresses, let me tell you.
Well, that was my actual question I wrote in here was when you hear "woman in white," do you immediately feel, like, spookiness when you hear that?
If I hear the woman in white or a woman in white, then I do kind of get the sense of something supernatural. I will say when when my husband and his brother were talking about the white lady, I was like, "Okay, well, that doesn't really fill me with a lot of spookiness."
Well, yeah, you're like, "I'm a white lady in the
I'm
Philippines,
like,
what you talking
"I
about?"
too am a white lady." But if I hear, like, the phrase "woman in white,"
Or "lady in white,"
then
yeah.
yeah, lady in white, woman in white, then yes, I absolutely kinda get like, "Okay, I think we're talking about something a little bit spooky here." But I also wonder if that's because here, in America, I feel like the phrase "woman in white" is typically used when we're talking about that kind of spirit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same idea across cultures, what they were how they would describe her. It's still
Mhm.
describing a lady in white, even if the wording is changed and it's not necessarily white. Most generally, and I'm pretty sure I have some statistics here because I looked up, uh,
Y'all,
there are
Carissa's out here doing it all.
just for statistics, because I have a little fascination with some statistics. I did look up, I think was it like 800?
All the sounds we make looking for the spots in our notes.
Right. I found over 800 and almost 850 distinct lady in white legends on
850.
yes, I think it was a little under that, but still around 850 Lady in White legends, and that's from 73 different countries or regions.
That is wild. That is insane.
Yes. And
That's too much to be a coincidence.
and about
Not a coinky
300 of
dink.
those have court records, police reports, church documentation, historical chronicles, where people have actually had no reason that they would ever fabricate some ghost story. So there's a lot of them that aren't just people making stuff up like, oh, well, that's the town drunk. He must have just had blurry eyes. No, people that have credibility are making these reports. So, anyways, where was I? Oh, I asked you about the spookiness. Yeah, that's what it was. I was like the spookiness of it. So here's the thing. When we think of like this primal image of spookiness, there's this real solid thing with anthropology and gives a reason for this. So historically, white was the color that was used in most cultures for death, not black.
Yes, I do remember learning that.
I mean, it's relatively a modern Western thing, we think, but in parts of like Rome, China, and Africa, white was mourning attire. Like even today in like some of the cultures of Asia, they wear white to funerals where we wear black.
Wow.
Yes. But here's another interesting detail that people may not know. In medieval Europe, if a woman was unmarried, and you might know this, she was often buried in a white wedding dress or all the attire she would need for a wedding dress. So she's this maiden attire that if she's unmarried, so in the afterlife, she would be the bride of Christ. So
Yes.
they would give her the stuff that she needed to fulfill her roles in the afterlife. So a lot of women, and I think I have a statistic. Again, I looked up another statistic for this one.
Girl,
And
you really out here like
Doomsday Book for court records for England from 1348 to 1353 during the Black Plague, approximately 127,000 unmarried women were buried in the white maiden garb. That's just
that's
England now,
sad,
okay?
but that's crazy.
Yeah, that is just England. So potentially millions.
So the the woman in white, they're just a bunch of single ladies.
Mm-hmm.
They're just a
Yeah.
bunch of single ladies.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay. So let's kind of look at some of the anthropology stuff like about this ancient Egypt. And we're going to talk about ancient Egypt in next episode because we're talking about cats.
Yes.
Stay
You
tuned to
guys
some creepy
get
cats next
ready.
episode. Yes. Okay. So in ancient Egypt, white linen for mummification wasn't decorative. It was a theological. White was association with Isis, goddess of magic in the afterlife. But it also was the concept of purity through death.
Okay.
Yeah, in like 1600 BCE, it specifically mentions in this papyrus written that wrapping the dead in white was to ensure safe passage to the afterlife, which we've talked about the afterlife of the Egyptians and how theirs isn't like a reincarnation as we've talked about before. It's a different type of thing that they keep that stuff so their body can keep progressing. Like you got to keep that stuff preserved. So it's
That was a
only
really fun conversation. So go back to that episode, you guys, if you want to.
yes, talk about the afterlife and talk about reincarnation. There's some genuinely fascinating theories about paranormal research from paranormal researchers. One of them is the electromagnetic spectrum hypothesis. This is where our human eyes I don't know, have you ever watched like some of the episodes of like Ghost Adventures or any other like taps like the Ghost Hunters or anything like that?
Yes. My gosh, both of those. My parents used to they would do a few ghost hunting things. They watched Taps a lot more than Ghost Adventures, but my brothers and I would watch Ghost Adventures when we were kids
Mhm.
just for fun. Such good memories.
Oh, yeah. Well, and when you do that, like think about it. Most generally, when they're finding spiritual apparitions or anything, there may not be technically a lady in white, but you typically see some type of white color, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so like 80% of the reported spirit sightings involve some kind of white or pale figure, according to like the database for paranormal research. And this is like across cultures, time periods, geographic locations. So that's why I kind of wanted to eventually like get into some of the quantum physics and some of the light stuff about like the photon emission stuff. So that way we can kind of talk about like spiritual world and how like we can explain it with science now that we understand how wavelengths work.
Yeah.
But I mean, literally, there's so much cool stuff with the Lady in White. I wanted to give a little bit more of those as well. One more that the European death practices, they were very specific about color. Like, it wasn't, it couldn't be like, it wasn't just like this white. It was like a bleached with sulfur and chalk to achieve like the purest white possible. Like they were
Oh, like
very
a
specific about
very
what.
specific shade.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you couldn't just be like, "Yeah, I found this in the back, it's white, it's fine to work." No. Like, their funeral directors had strict regulations. Like,
Wow.
yes, their white clothing requirement for mourning was believed that the dead needed immediately to be recognized by the gods, essentially, which is
Okay.
interesting that to be recognized to go into the spirit world, you must be wearing some form of white, okay?
That is interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but, I mean, the lady in white is I mean, there's ghost stories about her losing a child and mourning a child's death. There's, tragedy or a warning. There's all these things and stigmas that come with a lady in white. So, to finish this up, I wanted to kind of go over some of the understandings outside of the spiritual and the cultural side because I also love a little science, and I know you do too.
Yes, I'm here for it.
But how familiar, and I'm sure you're pretty familiar with this because your dad's a vet and you are a vet tech. So, with animals, and you understand how certain, like birds can see a lot more spectrum than we can
Yes,
because all four cones, they have like four cones working, right?
something like that.
Yeah. So,
Also
for
because they have to be able to understand and tell different
spectrum,
plants
well, yes,
so they
yes.
know what to eat.
So when a bird, typically a bird, okay, so we have these things called cones in our eyes. Humans typically have 3 in operation of the 4 that we have. Dogs, I think, have 2 in operation, but birds have all 4. Birds can actually see things that we can't see. So when people have near-death experiences and they're like, "Oh, I saw these colors and these vivid things that I've never seen in like when I was alive." Like, when I'm going through the crossing over, I saw these, and I never understood, like, how are there other colors? This is all the colors that we can see. No. If you have
There
a
are
fourth,
more.
there are more. Right. So how the light, different light, we can perceive different light. So with that thought process, imagine you're in the spirit world. So with near-death experiences, you know that through people's accounts of near-death experiences, there's some kind of other colors over there. There's a lot
Mhm.
of energy on the other side. So when a spirit comes through, if a lady in white is coming through, white would probably be the easiest to bring forth. It may take a lot more energy to bring forth other colors.
Other colors, yeah, yeah.
Right. Also, if they are bringing other colors through or other things, our eyes and our brain may not be able to comprehend them. So we're only seeing the white.
Well, that would make sense too,
Yes. Yeah.
because
So there's,
your brain is very good at making sure you comprehend
right. Right.
something.
Yeah. So, I mean, spirits may not have this physical form, but the best way they can communicate is through energy. It probably takes a lot of energy. That's probably why we don't have just ghosts walking around all the time because it probably takes a lot of energy to build up. And that's probably why they keep doing the same thing because there's probably still in that same emotion or whatever.
Yeah, whatever triggers that energy is probably that emotion associated with that moment.
Yeah. And there's also these theories out there that spirits tap into shared human symbolism. So it's kind of like when you tell someone, when I die, I'm going to send you a penny so
I'm
you
gonna
know it
send
was
you a
me.
penny. Yeah.
Right. So we know when we die the things that make us scared or things like that. So it's almost like you get that shared symbolism. The same as when we were talking about the some of the sleep demons. They know as
Yeah.
humans progress what makes them more fearful. So they evolve. Same thing with ghosts. Ghosts and apparitions probably have that same idea of human symbolism and evolving to what kind of like gets the point across, what they're doing.
Wow, that would be interesting.
Yes, using just their almost like it's like their own psychological manipulation to get our attention.
Yeah. They're like, "Hey,
All right.
I'm here."
So light and photon theories. Now, biophoton emission. Living beings, all and this is a scientifically documented thing. All living beings emit a very faint light. We all have a light, okay?
That's why we have colors.
Right. Well, I mean, and we it's like auras and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes, but everybody has a light, a faint light that we emit, okay? So it's possible that our consciousness or as we've talked, our soul or a spirit that separates from our body, as we've talked about in the spirit episode, when our spirit separates from our soul and becomes its separate entity because the physical shell is dead, continues to emit that photon after those photons after death.
I could
Then
see
these
that.
yeah, and these scattered photons might appear as white in like a glowing form. So that's also possible.
Interesting. I see it.
Yeah.
That make I see the logic.
Mhm, mhm. Also, there's also coherent, light generation. So this is something where spirits might be able to generate coherent light, like a natural laser. This would be kind of like they can almost focus that extremely bright, ethereal look that we sometimes see where they're glowing. This could
Mhm.
explain a lot of the things that are often reported about the glowing pale woman, pale lady or whatever, or even
The
the
glowing
dress.
pill me.
Right. Or if they're not pale skinned and their attire is bright and there
Mhm.
seems to be a light behind them sometimes, that could also be from that coherent light generation. Yes,
I
yes.
like that. Okay, yeah, I see the logic there, especially because in that episode,
Mhm.
the spirit episode, you and I had talked about how it is proven
Mhm.
that there is some kind of energy. There is something that is quantifiable. It has yet to be quantified, but it is quantifiable that leaves
Mhm.
the body when we die. We know that there is something. We just haven't been able to put a name to it and we haven't been able to quantify it. And so you saying, the possibility of our spirit, our soul, however you call it or believe it, is able to focus this energy into something, into this apparition, into light, into like the focused natural laser, like you were talking about. That does make sense. And I feel that is well within the realm of possibility of what we understand and what we know.
So I don't know if you've ever seen, I might have to send you a video on this, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but the observer effect. So quantum uncertainty, that when it is being observed, light will do things differently.
Yes.
Yes, there's like
Yes.
this, yeah, this is
Because an
something that is
electron has a spin only when it's observed to have that spin.
right, correct. Spirits might exist in multiple states simultaneously. White represents the quantum superposition before collapsing into a specific appearance. So, with the observer effect, they become more defined when they're not directly observed. It's interesting when they catch a ghost and they go to stare at it, sometimes they don't always get to see it like straight
Mhm.
on.
Like, you see it out of the corner of your eye, and you're
Yeah,
like, "Oh, what's
you
that?"
saw it there, yes, but then as soon as
Mhm.
you look directly at it, the
It's gone.
photons themselves, like, change. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
And like I said before, the white might be how our dimension perceives beings from another plane too.
Mhm.
This might be that crossing over. This is how it's almost like this is how it's projected to us in 3D because we're not looking at like an object that may create a shadow. It's not like it's light, it's just an energy. So we only see the simplified version of it. We're not seeing all of the stuff with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and true form might be something that our brains typically can't comprehend.
Can't comprehend
And
it, we
that
just
some
can't see.
people right, and some people may be more sensitive to it,
That's
for
true.
sure. Like the taxi driver that you mentioned, and there's multiple times people have picked people up,
Mhm.
where they're like, "I picked up this person, and guess what? They're gone."
Yeah.
It's very capable, their brain was open enough to see it and comprehend it versus someone who doesn't have that capability.
I
It's no
see
different than
dead
someone's
people.
ability to sing or someone who is more athletic. I feel like sometimes our brains have a superpower to be able to see things differently than other brains can.
That would make sense. It's,
Why some men
again,
can't find ketchup
very
bottles in the
believable.
refrigerator.
When your husband's like, "I can't find it." You
Yeah,
start walking to them and they start, like,
searching
panicking and
really
being like,
fast.
"I gotta find it. I gotta find this thing before she gets here."
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's a difference between them. And, they also say that a male brain or a male, yeah, I guess male brain is unable to see or comprehend the same range of colors
Mhm,
as a female
mhm.
because we're just cooler like that.
Well, also, this is something cross culture, just color stuff. We have names for colors. We have, oh, that is red, but that's cherry red. Oh, we have
Mhm.
different colors and we have such a wide range for red. We have such a wide range for blue. So many different colors in the Crayola crayon box. So, like our coloring tools,
Yeah,
there's so many variations. I think a couple countries, they have like 9 colors and blue is blue. Whether it's light or dark, it's still blue.
but it's not the same
I
blue.
know because it's kind for us, sure. I remember reading about other cultures, like, they might have 30 words in their entire dictionary of words to describe everything they need to get out, where we have books and books of words.
A gajillion.
Yeah.
Way too many.
Yes. Yes.
Way too many words.
Yeah, so it's the same idea, like, what you comprehend,
Mhm.
and it's just like anybody else's story is being told. The story of the white lady in the Philippines is based on the perceiver and how they share the story, and then how someone takes that story and how they respin the story.
Interesting. Well, this was a fun way to take this conversation.
Mhm.
That's
Alright, well, hopefully this
fascinating.
was
I
fun
like
for
it.
everybody else.
I hope y'all loved it.
I hope if you see a lady in white or a woman in white, you share your story with us so we can share it with the rest of the
Yeah,
world.
please tell us about it. If they happen to get into your car, then and you wanna tell us about it, then just, like,
Nope,
attention
right out.
Carissa, not me. I don't
Nope,
wanna know about it, but you can
nope,
tell
right out.
Carissa.
Well, I wanna know about
Get
it,
out
but
of your
don't
car. If a lady in white gets into your car, get out of the car.
If she tries to get in my car, she'd probably have challenges climbing up into the Wrangler.
Get in.
Girl, that's not even decent. Your dress be flying all up.
You're gonna be like, your dress is gone, sweetheart. It is back there on the road. You need to go get it.
So funny. All right, thankful we're back out here. We are giving you some episodes.
We're so
Don't get
happy to be back.
Yeah, don't get mad at us if we have a little hiatus. We do have a lot going on. Willow's got a book signing this weekend,
Mhm.
which, hey, this is coming out Friday. You wanna share where you're gonna be at this weekend?
Is this coming out this Friday or
Yes,
next Friday? Okay,
this
so
Friday. I'm gonna get this ready and have it out by this Friday.
by the way, actually you're wrong. My book signing is next weekend.
Oh, wait a minute, I thought it was this weekend.
No, it's on March 28th, you goofy little goober.
I thought it was this weekend.
Okay, but I'll still tell people, I will be signing my books and selling my books and selling, bookmarks and stickers in Pensacola, Florida at Books by the Bay,
Nice.
which is like I think it's in Bayview Park, again in Pensacola. It will be from, I believe, 10 to 4. I think it's all outside. There might be an indoor portion, but I think it's all outside. So come see me. There's going to be a bunch of other authors there, several that are going to be local, several that will not be local, but are coming for the event. So not only can you come get my books, Korean X and Korea Vis, but you can also get books from several other authors who are indie, hybrid, or traditionally published. So you can go there and support all kinds of authors and all kinds of bookish vendors and artists.
But until then, if you want to reach out and find out more about Willow's book or anything that we do outside of this, or you want to add to the podcast, you can reach out to us at info@theparallaxpodcast.com. Or you can go to our website, click on the 2 little cute icons there on theparallaxpodcast.com, and give us a little follow on our social medias. All right, until next week, or whenever we decide to throw out you another podcast episode, thank you for listening. I'm Karisa.
And I'm Willow. Goodbye, mortals.